Welcome to the Sustainability Business Podcast, a show bringing conversations to the community shaping the future of energy and sustainability. Be sure to join us on LinkedIn and learn about the innovative solutions that are turning the tide towards a more sustainable future for all. Hello everyone and welcome to our podcast today. Today we're going to be talking about data and how that is so important in ESG reporting. We're going to look into key performance indicators and how these directly translate to recording and reporting ESG data in particular. So environmental, social and governance key performance indicators are becoming increasingly important to businesses, also investors and other stakeholders who are looking to measure and also report on the sustainability and the social impact of organizations. In recent years, the collection and analysis of ESG data has become a critical part of corporate reporting, and a range of software solutions have emerged to support companies in tracking and reporting against their ESG KPIs. These software tools can help organizations to automate the collection and analysis of ESG data and also to generate reports and insights that can be then used to identify areas for improvement, communicate that progress to stakeholders, and also to comply with regulatory requirements. Additionally, software solutions can help organizations to benchmark their performance against their industry peers, track their progress over time, and also identify emerging trends and risks. As the demand for ESG data and reporting continues to grow, businesses and investors alike are recognizing the value of using data and the software tools to track and report against their ESG KPIs. This trend is expected to continue as more organizations seek to demonstrate their commitment to sustainability and also to social responsibility, and as stakeholders increasingly demand greater transparency and accountability around these issues. Today on the podcast, I'm talking to our in-house expert on data and ESG reporting KPIs, Erika Hornok. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Emily, and thank you for inviting me to this podcast. Greetings to the listeners as well. My name is Erika Hornok, and I've been working for Schneider Electric for ages. I think 14 years. So it's been a long time, but it's been also a really interesting journey through our procurement teams, through renewable energy gaining more and more traction in the market, and eventually I circled back to our sustainability reporting team a year ago, and yeah. So when I joined the company in 2009, I still felt that procurement was the center of conversations at the point. I did start in our sustainability reporting team at the time as an analyst, and we mainly talked to procurement people from our clients' companies who were heavily working on the UK or complying with the UK CRC scheme that just appeared at the time in the market, and that caused a lot of headache to these companies who previously just focused on energy data, consumption data, invoices.
Erika, can you just clarify what CRC is and what the demands were for that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that was the UK's carbon reduction commitment scheme that required large companies disclose on their emissions related to their energy consumption and energy usage.
And so kind of was it the first or near the first of its time, almost sustainability ESG reporting type?
Correct. So this was the first, one of the first compliance schemes in the UK that, beyond EU ETS at the time, tied emissions reduction commitments and emission output to fees and financial implications as well. So if a company recorded emissions, they had to purchase units and allowances after that.
Thank you.
So that was the first time when we actually faced and saw how companies are tackling this new approach around turning energy data into emissions, and then also seeing how this can impact their financial results eventually in the end. as they needed to really pay for the CRC compliance even after that. Mm-hmm. So what was really also interesting to see in the past couple of years is really the ecosystem that started building out around climate disclosure and emissions disclosure since then. So it really started with consultant companies like ourselves at the time, trying to help companies disclose and calculate their emissions accurately. And then, of course, their auditors and verifiers appeared as well to join this environment and this market as well, that ensure that the data is more and more accurate as we go forward. And I think the most exciting evolution in recent years is the appearance of different software solutions, as you rightly highlighted in the introduction as well, how these can help the accurate aggregation of the GHG data and how they can further reduce cost around, for example, verification as well. So the past, I would say, 15 years have really seen an accelerated attention around ESG reporting and new actors in this environment as well, from consultants through auditors and then verifiers, and then eventually the latest around software companies and software solutions.
Amazing. Thank you for introducing yourself and also telling us about the landscape of climate reporting, emissions reporting, and kind of how that's evolved over the last 15 years. I just want to ask you a bit more about how you've seen the transition from climate reporting, mostly focused on emissions, into ESG reporting, and how social and governance aspects have been incorporated in to create this kind of ESG reporting buzzword almost.
Yeah, so it all started with, of course, climate disclosure, because I would also think that quantifying your emissions is one of the first steps and one of the, I would say, easiest step to take on the ESG reporting journey, as it really comes for energy consumption. We can mention that, of course, different scopes of emissions bring about different challenges as well, and there are still so many things to be done around scope 3 as well. But in the meantime, as we see on the voluntary disclosure scene as well, the social and governance factors have started appearing as part of the ESG disclosures as being also very important to ensure that a company or a corporate is operating in a sustainable way. So beyond emissions, operations or companies need to align with sustainable and socially responsible and ethical practices as well, to create a complete picture of their sustainability journey and their sustainable operation to investors, to their customers, to their employees, who regard this topic more and more important.
Definitely, and I'm glad that social and governance are being taken into account and taken into the picture, because absolutely sustainability goes further than just carbon emissions. Can you explain to me what an ESG indicator is and why companies are using this or talking about this in their ESG reporting?
Yeah, so I think it's worth taking a step back and say, like, okay, ESG topics are more and more interesting to different stakeholders and different investors and customers, but it's also worth saying that how companies tackle this in the past year is setting more and more targets and more making commitments to demonstrate their new journey towards a more sustainable operation. So with these targets, it is evident that these targets need to be measured and they need to demonstrate their progress against their commitment as well. For this, companies might create different KPIs around emissions and social and governance topics as well. So a KPI can be also regarded as an ESG indicator that really shows a company's progress towards their targets. And these indicators are also used to assess a company's performance, for example, in areas such as energy efficiency, waste management, corporate governance, or employee welfare. So these are the meaningful and relevant indicators that a company can use to demonstrate their progress towards their commitment and targets that they have set to show their commitment in the sustainability topics.
Okay, thank you. That makes perfect sense. What would make a good ESG indicator? I guess it's one that is easily communicated to stakeholders, but can you kind of explore that idea a little bit of what makes a good ESG indicator?
ESG indicators have multiple purposes, and they tell a story externally as well, but they have to be super useful internally for the company as well. So, for example, a good ESG indicator helps also companies identify the areas of risks and opportunities within their operations. They also enable, of course, companies demonstrate their commitment to the sustainable and responsible practices to stakeholders. And externally, they allow these investors to evaluate a company's long-term sustainability and ethical practices. An indicator should be very relevant to the company itself as well. It should align with the company's industry, the size, the operational context, for example. And to be able to monitor this year on year, it has to be very consistent as well. So it should be comparable over time. And once we are talking about comparing, of course, it should be measurable too. So although we tend to think about social and governance metrics as more qualitative type of metrics, these metrics can be translated to a data-driven, quantifiable information as well. And of course, if we think about an ESG indicator or KPI, that is there to trigger action. So these KPIs should be actionable, and they need to give information and give support to decision making and strategy as well within a company.
Okay. How would I, for example, come up with an appropriate indicator that represents performance across an entire organization? What's the process for coming up or creating these KPIs?
That's a really good question, because there are so many KPIs out there, so many targets, so many commitments from, for example, if you were a company, you would probably have seen your competitors already committing to certain targets as well. But if this hasn't happened yet, and you are one of the first in your industry or in your area to start thinking about what to include in your ESG report and ESG KPI, then the first step is to make sure that you identify the relevant issues to your business. Identify only those that are really relevant to your business, making an impact on the environment and making a financial impact as well. This is a practice that is done through a materiality assessment or double materiality assessment that might be familiar to many companies out there, as compliance schemes and reporting directives are emerging, thinking about the latest corporate sustainability reporting directive that is requiring companies already to start identifying what is relevant, where they have impact in the industry. So, for example, a packaging company might more think about waste and waste management, and potentially biodiversity may not be on top of their ESG metrics as the most relevant to them. So it's very important to start identifying these key ESG issues that are relevant to the business. And this is important for two reasons. One is, like, they are meaningful. They need to be meaningful to you as a company as well. But if you are not identifying too many, or you try to track too many, then it might result in the loss of on the quality side. So it's very important to find the right balance of making sure that quality is on top of your agenda as opposed to quantity. To develop an ESG indicator, you also need to determine what data can be collected to measure these issues. What you have already as what you can extract from your current systems and what is not available yet, and where you might need to close gaps in your data processing and data collection practices. And then once you know what you want to show, like certain waste reduction KPIs, and you know that you do have data for this, you have waste management information from your systems, and then you need to come up with a methodology to calculate this indicator. That methodology will help you to stay consistent year over year. And then eventually it is always worth like calculating and testing the indicator from time to time to make sure that it accurately reflects your performance. So you need to decide on what actually you want to measure, how you will gather the data for measuring it, how you will actually use that data to calculate the KPI, and then eventually revisit it on a regular basis to make sure that it is still relevant to your business and it is still capturing the most impactful practices that you wanted to monitor.
A very thorough answer. Thank you. So what I understood from that, firstly, is to ensure that you start with fewer KPIs, but they're of a higher quality, so they're super relevant to your business. And the second one is ensure that they're measurable and that you have the data to be able to measure for these KPIs, you're able to collect that. From there, I have two questions. One around the quality of the KPI, but kind of in reaching that KPI, who should the business be involving and getting buy-in from to be able to create and also meet these KPIs?
That's a really good question, and I think that is one of the biggest challenge of our customers when they talk to us about their data collection practices, because to cover such a wide area and topics, like not only the environmental part, not only the energy part, but also making sure that other stakeholders are involved as well and committed to the aim and to the goal of monitoring ESG performance, you need to involve a diverse group of stakeholders, including representatives from different departments like your human resources, finance, accounting, procurement, of course. And normally these stakeholders would hold their data in a decentralized way. So this is very common that HR is not using potentially the same system to gather information as to finance. So there you find yourself as a sustainability responsible person in a company who is trying to gather all this data from the different departments. And this can result in getting the data in emails, in Excel files, in different formats, and everyone might be using different quality standards and calculation standards to come up with the information that you, as a sustainability report creator, would need. So it is worth making sure that those who are providing you the input to your ESG report are clear on the expectations and the standards of quality that you need to deliver and your company needs to deliver in your ESG report. So there may be different solutions to come over this. It is very dependent from from company to company, because these situations and these structures within the companies can be very, very different. So from conducting workshops or presenting the business case of ESG indicators to the different stakeholders can help gaining buy-in, and can also help them understand the benefits and the importance of sustainable and responsible reporting in the future. And then, of course, all these stakeholders will provide you with feedback, and then taking these feedbacks into consideration and creating this internal ecosystem of ESG reporting can help keeping up engagement, apart from the compliance requirements. So what we are facing now in Europe, but in the US as well through SEC, is that although ESG reporting and climate disclosure has been voluntary for so many years, since the early 2000s, we are moving towards more of a compliance scheme, which makes it absolutely necessary to create this internal data governance and information governance system.
Yes, definitely. We're seeing that all the time, that more and more companies are having to comply with ESG reporting, and therefore are coming up with all of these challenges or new things that they have to incorporate in their business operations. You mentioned ESG data being super important, and that there are various challenges, such as different systems in-house being used to collect different data, but actually the need to aggregate that to meet these or to measure on these ESG KPIs. What are the most common challenges that businesses have with ESG data, and how have you and how do we in Schneider work with the businesses to help them overcome these problems?
So I think there are multiple challenges, and as I mentioned, these challenges can be different from company to company. The most common areas, however, is around data quality and lack of data and low data quality. So ESG reporting is really heavily dependent on data, and that it should be available and as accurate as possible. This is not always easy, and through this, it becomes a difficulty to measure certain ESG factors as well. And then the lack of understanding and buying from stakeholders might be the other challenge that I would mention as well. Gathering the data from there, making sure that the data is in a standard format at least, and represents standard quality. Monitoring change year over year, and making sure that these changes can be relevant and compared to each other is also very, very, very important. And if the data governance and if the system within a company is decentralized and every department owns their own data and their own data quality, it can be really difficult tracking back changes if there are personal changes, and then also making sure that historical data is available and can be recalled and used whenever it is needed. So to overcome these challenges, we provide our clients with multiple solutions dependent on their maturity in the topic, starting with data, the support of data collection and analysis, providing them with a space where this data can be stored in a structured and standardized way. We can help them develop and create measurable indicators as well, so that can help understanding where the data will be feeding into and how they will be able to build out their ESG report. But we can also start with training and education, because what I always see, ESG reporting is not a one-off exercise. It's a recurring event, and it is a journey as well. So when companies start thinking about ESG disclosure, they face two worries. One of them is like, oh, this has to be absolutely complex, and I need to cover so many things that it is impossible. And I always think that and say as well, like you don't need to cover everything in the first instance. There is a minimum that you need to look at and start building out. And you should do it rather earlier than really later. So if you just think about compliance, you might only be required to disclose in 2024 or 2025. However, as reporting is a journey, it is a muscle. You need to exercise, and you will be able to build it out and build out a more and more robust output year on year. It should be started earlier than later. And then the other challenge that I've heard recently from a workshop is, if I need to disclose but I'm not ready, there might be a naming and shaming and others pointing fingers at me that my methodology is not absolutely correct, my figures are not absolutely correct. And for that, I know this is a challenge, and this is a concern for many companies. This is inevitable. So in Europe, CSRD will require companies to disclose, and this will be something that is available to potentially others in the market as well. Again, the earlier you start, the better preparations you can make to deliver better results. But also, the earlier you start, the earlier you can identify those gaps that need to be closed. And then you can also, apart from the data, just the data itself, there is also an element of what else you are doing to making these figures more accurate, what else you have done to identify and recognize your gaps in your reporting system or reporting practices perhaps, and how you are addressing those. So it's not always around, or it's never about just the data. It is information to your stakeholders about like where you stand now and where you are heading to. And that's it's also very important to consider as when tackling these general challenges of, I don't want to disclose because it will expose me to the market. It will expose me to those who can potentially just say it's not correct. If you realize it earlier that it is not correct, at least you can take steps to make sure that you are correcting it and share these steps and efforts with your stakeholders. If they realize it first, then you might end up in a situation where you need to react rather than proactively address these issues. Even if you cannot fix everything for the first time, you can detail out in your report and in your ESG report what you are doing to fill these gaps and address these gaps. And this is also something that our company is helping our clients with, identifying these gaps and then developing short and longer term actions that can help closing these gaps and make their ESG reporting more robust and accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you've touched on a really good point there, that I find this as well when I come across clients, that they really want to have the best data out there the first time that they report, whereas actually it is 100% a journey. ESG reporting, you just have to begin, and your data will get better, your reporting will get better as each time you do it. And as you say, you'll react to the market and what demands are put upon the business as well as things go. I've got two questions left, one just kind of as a summary, and one a bit of a wild card question. Can you give your tips or next steps for businesses that are wanting to begin their ESG reporting journey?
This is indeed wide. So I think to begin your ESG reporting journey, you should start by understanding your key ESG issues and defining your purpose and goals that are important to you and that are meaningful to your stakeholders and the environment as well. Once you have that, then you need to develop a measurable or multiple measurable and relevant indicators and start establishing the process for data collection and analysis. And then it is really about regularly reviewing and updating these indicators and use them to drive the decision making and the strategy of the company as well. And this cycle, this continuous process of improvement and learning will take you further in your ESG reporting journey, and make sure that if anything new comes in, like a new compliance scheme, a new requirement, you already have a really strong foundation. So start with identifying what is relevant to your company through a materiality or double materiality assessment, and then explore what you can already report on through your systems, and where are the gaps and how you will address those gaps. Look at quick fixes, and also look at medium to longer term solutions as well within your company's data and information governance system.
Amazing. Thank you for that summary. Last final question. AI is a hot topic at the moment. Can you see it being useful in ESG reporting, ESG data reporting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a very, very exciting topic. And when I said in the beginning that I think one of the most exciting evolution in the climate disclosure ecosystem is the appearance of softwares, it's also, I would say, along with AI, this is one of the most exciting topics I have been involved in the past couple of months or years even. AI can have multiple purposes and can serve multiple support functions within ESG reporting, from, as I said, identification of relevant topics, data quality improvement, but also I think if we just think about the potential of gathering information from the already publicly available information from the internet, it can help data collection, it can help data quality assurance, and it can help also gathering data for all those aggregators who are out on the market and are collecting voluntary disclosures and voluntary reports already. It has been mentioned by multiple initiatives and these disclosure schemes in the market as well, that they are aiming to use AI to gather information from publicly available sources about corporates. So this is definitely a really exciting topic that would worth discovering perhaps in the next episode, and perhaps through a longer discussion.
Yeah, maybe that's one that I'm going to look into. You've inspired me. Thank you very much for talking with me today and answering some of my questions about ESG reporting and data collection and the importance of KPIs. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. It's been really nice to chat with you.
Thank you for inviting me, Emily. It was a nice chat.
Thanks very much. Thank you for listening to the Sustainability Business Podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the Trailblazers and their innovative solutions for a more sustainable future. Be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn to stay engaged and informed. Together, we can be the change makers our planet needs.